Welcoming Rebecca to the Hall of Fame is Gino Auriemma. Ladies and gentlemen, Rebecca Lobo.
I thought you only sat on a throne. A few years ago, after I had worked a UConn game as a sideline reporter, I saw Coach Auriemma, and he said to me, Rebecca, in the future, when you interview me, can you please take off? So ever since then, that's what I've done when I've interviewed him. And when I asked him a couple months ago if he would be willing to present me tonight, I said, I promise I'll take off my heels. And he said, I'll present you, provided you let me wear your heels. We'll save that for later. I grew up 15 miles from here in Southwick, Massachusetts. My middle school coach, Len Larrabee, and my high school coach, Jim Vincent, taught me how to play. The people in that town helped raise me, and I hope they all take some amount of pride in this. The people who actually raised me and supported me and drove me to practices and sacrificed were my parents. My father is here. Dad, thank you. I love you. I started playing basketball because I wanted to be like my older brother and my older sister. I adored them and wanted to emulate them. My brother Jason played basketball at Dartmouth. He is now a judge in Connecticut. We like to say that his college career prepared him well to sit on the bench. My sister Rachel and I played together for 2 years in high school, and this was the late 80s, so we both had big hair, the exact same hairstyle as Eddie Van Halen at the time. And perhaps because of that distraction, I scored a lot of points in high school, but half of them were on assists from her. So thank you, Rachel, for being here. Now, I went to UConn because I wanted to play for Coach Auriemma and Chris Daly, and it was the best basketball decision of my life. Now when I work games, whether I'm in an arena calling a game or in studio, I get texts from Chris Daly for almost every game. And about 50% of the time, the text just says, I just pressed mute. So CD, who is here, you can't press mute tonight. Thank you so much for the role you have had in getting me here and the role you've had in my life. My senior year at UConn was one of the most magical seasons in the history of women's college basketball. Pam, Jamel, Kara, Carla, Keisha, thanks for making that such a fun ride. Jen Rosati is here, and she is one of my best friends and best teammates. And Jen, thank you so much for being by my side for so much of my basketball career. Now, professional basketball didn't exist in the United States when I was a kid, but playing professionally was a dream of mine. When I was in the 6th grade, I wrote a letter to Red Auerbach and said, I am going to be the first girl to play for the Boston Celtics. I wasn't. But because of David Stern, Adam Silver, Val Ackerman, Renee Brown, I was able to realize that dream in the WNBA. Now I get to watch my oldest daughter light up when she talks about Brianna Stewart, or my 11-year-old beam when she puts on her Tina Charles jersey. I have 3 daughters who play basketball, so the WNBA means even more to me now than it did when I was playing in it. We watch a lot of women's basketball in our house because that's my job. And when my oldest daughter was about 5 years old, it was March Madness, so I was on the road calling a basketball game, and my husband was watching the UConn men's team. And my 5-year-old came in and looked at the TV, and she said, Daddy, are those boys playing basketball? And he said, yes, they are. And she said, I didn't know boys played basketball too. I spent the early years of the WNBA in New York, and my Liberty teammates were special. Sue, Spoon, Kim, Coquise, thanks for your friendship and help in getting me here. When I retired from playing, I got the chance to, as my kids say, talk ball game when ESPN hired me. I'm thankful to Pat Lowry and Tina Thornton for giving me the opportunity to do this job that I love. But no one tells you how to do it, except for everybody on Twitter. I am grateful to her two mentors and friends in particular, and that's Doris Burke and Holly Rowe. You are great friends who've been with me along this ride, and I thank you for being here tonight. Now, my husband and I met the old-fashioned way in a dive Irish bar in New York City. And he was and is a columnist for Sports Illustrated, and I read his columns all the time. And about 2 weeks before we met, he'd written this article in Sports Illustrated, and it had a throwaway line in it, and it said, "Much like Wilt Chamberlain, I too slept with 8,000 women last night. I was at a New York Liberty game." So that night when I met him, I said, "I know who you are. Aren't you the guy who wrote that joke about the New York Liberty?" And he blushed more than he is right now, and he said, "Yes, I am." And I said, "Well, how many games have you been to?" And he said, "None." And I said, "Well, obviously, or else you would have been sleeping with 12,000 women, because that's how many fans we average." But since then, he has been to hundreds of WNBA and women's college games, and most exciting of all, 10-year-old girls' AAU basketball games. When I found out I was being inducted into the Hall of Fame, I texted Steve, and I said, "Tonight, you get to sleep next to a Naismith Hall of Famer." And his response was, "Great!" exclamation mark. "Larry Bird?" question mark. And Larry, yes, we know, he has to stay at least 15 feet away. My 4 kids, Siobhan, Maeve, Thomas, and Rose, I am so proud of you all, mostly for behaving tonight. It's a long night. Now, if anyone has ever coached their own kids, they know the joys of that. But there's also some big challenges. I coach my kids. And if you coach your kids, you know they don't listen to you. And my oldest daughter, for the first time about a year ago, played and got a chance to be coached by a different coach. And she was out in the driveway working on a post move. And I came over and I said, "Siobhan, if you want to get the post move, you got to get low. I want, get a low dribble, get your center of gravity low, and then explode up." And she said, "Yeah, but what we worked on in practice, Coach D showed us the high dribble and to come to the side." I said, "I know, but you're tall, and he's teaching it for a guard. You're tall, you need to get low. I want your dribble low and go up." And she kept arguing with me. "No, Coach D said to do it this way." I said, "Siobhan, Coach D is a 5'8" orthodontist." When I was in 3rd grade, it was the first time I got a chance to play on a basketball team. I signed up in the town of Southwick in the Park and Rec League to play. And my mom got a call, and they said, "We're sorry, only 2 girls signed up, so there's not a team, and Rebecca can't play." And my mom said, "No, that just means you have to let her play on the boys' team." And so she brought me down. The other girl decided not to play, and I was the only girl on the team. And my mom said to the coach, "I want you to treat Rebecca the exact same way that you treat all the boys. If they run sprints, she runs sprints. If you're yelling at them, you need to yell at her." So the only exception is, if you play shirts and skins, I want her on the shirts team. No one would have appreciated this Hall of Fame honor more than my mother. I love you, Mom. And no one would have appreciated more seeing you in my heels. When you recruited me, you knew I belonged at UConn. You knew I was meant to play for you. And fortunately, I knew that too, and I followed my heart. And you have completely changed my life. And for that, I thank you. You have changed my life, and I am here tonight completely because of you. Thank you.